Welcome to MH News, everybody. I'm your host, Matt Haslam. Its main topic in mainstream media today: will GoPros eventually replace all sorts of cameras, whether it be DSLRs or even cinema cameras for major Hollywood films? Will they replace them? Nowadays, there's GoPro Hero 4 Black Editions that have a resolution of 4K, which is the highest definition and high definition you can get out there. There's also GoPro Hero 4 Silver Editions that can get 2.7K, which is again higher than regular resolution. And then there's even at the $200 price point here of a GoPro Hero 3 White Edition. It's just regular 1080 resolution, but it's still HD resolution, and it's only $200. So with GoPros being so cost efficient nowadays, are they going to eventually replace bigger cameras that cost more? My personal opinion of it is that, well, basically the size and the fisheye lens are going to be a problem, because basically to hold this is a lot harder to hold and keep stable, or to put on a tripod. It just doesn't look that professional, let's face it. It looks like a puny little camera. But whereas a DSLR, if you have something like a Canon T5i, which is this is a model of, it looks more impressive. It looks like you're a professional photographer, and it's a lot more stable of a shot if you're trying to hold it and get the perfect shot, especially for photos and stuff like that. A video, maybe it's a back and forth thing, but DSLRs don't have the capability of getting more than half hour footage at a time, because they're mandated by some sort of government regulation that in order to have it longer than half hour, then you need to classify it as a video camera, and that would need to be more money. I don't know how exactly that should be more money to buy it. I don't get what Canon and Nikon whole thing is on that. But with DSLRs, you can replace the lenses. If, say for instance, you need a longer zoom length or something like that, you can replace them, have different lenses for it, and you can zoom in, you can focus, all that kind of stuff. Whereas on a GoPro, you really can't do that. So I think it's going to be a thing where the size of this is going to actually go against itself, where basically they market themselves towards sporting events and different activities that you might do. And while this is a lot less cumbersome to carry around or to just have on your helmet, which I've seen like football games or different sporting events where they've had these mounted to their helmets or something like that, or maybe it's a race car or something like that, they're just over off to the side, and it's a lot less cumbersome to carry around. Whereas if you have a DSLR, all of a sudden trying to mount this to your helmet is a lot harder. So I think the size works for its application, but I think its size is going to go against itself when it tries to if and when they try to compete against real DSLRs and real cameras out there that are for a more professional shot. Where I think GoPros still serve a purpose is in different types of different shots for maybe like Discovery Channel or something like that, where they do Gold Rush shows, where they want a certain shot from a really unique location. GoPros are the only thing that can fit in there into that location to get that. And the fisheye lens, I think, is going to go against it too, because let's face it, if you set this up, your fisheye lens gets everything. You can't focus in on just one thing. You can't focus in on a far distance. You can't replace the lens. I know there's adapters nowadays that you can put on here, but I think that won't allow you to have the housing on it. But I think what's really still cool about DSLRs and GoPros, the contradiction between the two, is that housing for this to go underwater, it comes with the camera. So for $200, you can get a Hero 3 White Edition. It comes with the housing. It comes with all the things you're going to need besides an SD card, which, again, for these is just a micro SD card, which is phenomenal that they can just put it on a micro SD. And I think a lot of the shows bank on that. How many GoPros are ruined in the making of whatever kind of production you're watching, especially for an activity show or something like that. So a lot of GoPros are ruined, and all they really need is that micro SD card inside of it to survive, and they got the shot, because they don't care about the camera itself because they're so cost efficient. Whereas breaking a DSLR is a lot more costly for them. So I think this coming in an all-in-one unit is going to go towards it, towards the good side of having a GoPro rather than a DSLR. Whereas a DSLR, like I looked into for our Canon T5i here at the studio, I looked into like a waterproof housing for it, and it was like $1,300 or $1,400. So I think, whereas the camera itself is only $799 on B&H, with the kit lens, with an SD card, and with a bunch of other stuff. So I think the housing, I gotta give that one to the GoPro because it comes with it. And nowadays you can get 4K resolution, which I know there's people out there that are gonna say, if you're editing in 1080 and you're shooting 4K on a Hero 4 Black Edition, you can crop that down later on. And so a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll put a GoPro on top of their DSLR or whatever other camera they have. And I know in a previous episode here at MH News, we did a little snippet of behind the scenes of Price is Right, and that's exactly what they did. They have GoPros on the front of all of their main studio cameras, and they'll actually, if the main camera cuts out for some reason, they'll cut to this really quick, the feed from the GoPro. And I know what I do a lot of times on interviews or something like that, I'll have a GoPro up here, and when and if my camera cuts out, which most DSLRs cut out at 29 minutes and 59 seconds because they're not allowed to go 30 minutes or more in one recording time because of some sort of regulations coming down from the federal government saying that otherwise they'd be classified as a video camera and they would have to be more expensive. I don't get exactly why they have to be more expensive. It's still the same cost for them to make. It's just a matter of the recording length, which is absolutely nothing to Canon and Nikon, but both of them say that's the reason why they can't do it. But I think, cutting to this camera when the main camera cuts out is a major advantage because it's from the same exact camera angle. So now you have the same angle from both cameras, so you can cut to this one really fast, and you don't really have to worry about it. But I still think the fisheye lens and the overall size is still going to be a detriment to the GoPro because now you have this small little camera to hold, and trying to put this on a tripod again or a jib, it's just going to be too small, and I think it's going to be a detriment to them. So I don't think necessarily they're going to replace main cameras overall. I think what it's going to end up being is they kind of found their niche in filmmaking of having a small camera that's cost efficient to replace, and basically in one way they found a great market because when Canon sells maybe a C100 camera, they're going to sell one of them. They're not going to sell 5 of them. Whereas GoPro, and basically with a big camera for a studio or something like that, when you buy one, you're not going to break it every week, and you're not going to be coming back for another one. For GoPros, you might sell a $500 Hero 4 Black Edition, and then next week you break it or something like that on a production, and you're going to be coming back for another one. So I think to that aspect, GoPro found a really great way to be in business for a very long time because you're going to have a lot of return customers. And, someplace like Discovery Channel might buy cases of these at a time just because they're so versatile and because they're going to get broken. A lot of productions in the behind the scenes or a comedic sketch of a production, they'll say, only 5 cameras were harmed in the making of this. And that's a GoPro. I mean, people run over GoPros all the time. They're small, but at the end of the day, they're cost efficient to replace. So I don't think they're going to replace cameras overall. I think they're just going to find their niche, which they kind of already did find their niche. And I think it's a great camera for an entry-level person who doesn't have the money to get a DSLR, but they're great on sliders, they're great on tripods, and they're great on jibs and whatever else you need to start out with. But once you start moving to a more professional level, that's when you're going to move to a DSLR or something bigger. I think they're great for entry level because they are cheap, and because they also offer the GoPro Studio editing program, which isn't the best editing program out there, but it's free. So I think basically they found their niche, and I think they're not going to replace cameras overall, but I think for the entry level, they're going to probably replace most other cameras. They're definitely replacing video cameras nowadays, where Sony and Kodak and all of them had their niche before. Now GoPro has. So I'd love to hear your comments on this. See what you think. Start a conversation below in the comment section. I'd love to see what you think. Please email us at questions@mhnews.info. Just for anything on this, comment, questions, whatever you have. We'd love to hear your thoughts, whether or not they're going to replace main cameras or not. So let's hear your thoughts. Have a good one, and see us back here every Monday through Thursday. I broke my DSLR now. See what happens? See how easily they are to break? GoPros aren't this hard to break. It's amazing my job really does consist of me playing with Legos. Love my job. What'd you do, honey? Oh, what'd you do all day, honey? Oh, no, I was playing with Legos. That's my job. Fix now. See how easy to fix my DSLR? Don't need to send it back to Canon or anything.